She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate. Fragile skull. I take my pleasure from my alcohol.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another Coffee and Crime Time. Today we're discussing a case that is ongoing. It feels like there's new information every single day, every hour at this point. It's moving very quickly, and to be honest, I have not seen a true crime case generate this much buzz and interest in a long time. Most of my friends and family are not true crime people. They don't watch it, they don't follow it, they don't want to talk about it. But with this case, it feels like everyone is watching with shock and horror as it unfolds. And all of these people who I've never even heard or seen mention true crime before, they're posting on social media that the details of this case are blowing their minds, and they can't stop reading about it or looking into it. And I'm talking about the case of 22-year-old Gabby Petito, who was reported missing by her family on September 11th, 2021. Now the media is doing what it does. They've painted this young woman as some social media influencer, some star, but in reality, Gabby, she was just a young, cute girl who had a zest for life. She wanted to go on this van journey and document it in order to build her social media presence. The van life trend has been building these past few years. It's an aesthetic trend that claims living this minimalized life in a van not only decreases financial burdens, but increases overall happiness, and it gives these people a freedom from everyday life while they live out in nature and experience, the natural beauty of the world around them. It sounds heavenly. And when you scroll through these pictures on Instagram or these videos on TikTok of all the young, attractive people blissfully living out of their vans with gorgeous backdrops of mountains and oceans behind them, you might be ready to turn in your house keys and get an RV. But it is a business like any other. And the people who are involved with this business, they're selling a lifestyle. Gabby Petito and her boyfriend, Brian Laundrie, bought into that lifestyle, and they didn't look back. But before we get started, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, Magellan TV. I'm wearing different clothes. It's a long story. Don't be alarmed. I know many of you are already watching Magellan TV, and here's my recommendation for you today. Lee Matthews was a South African college student who was kidnapped from the parking lot of Bond University the day before her 21st birthday party. Her body was found 2 weeks later, shot to death, and the 25-year-old man responsible for her death was sentenced to life in prison, but there is so much more to this case. So check out Finding Lee, A Tangled Web on Magellan TV to learn more about the case that shook South Africa. Magellan TV has over 3,000 documentary films and series available right now, and they add more every single week. You can stream to your phone, tablet, or computer, or you can watch on your smart TV, Roku, Apple TV, etc. That way, Magellan TV is available to you anytime, any place. You can watch everything on Magellan TV ad-free, and many of their films and series are available in 4K. So whether you're interested in true crime, history, science, nature, or really anything else, there's something for everyone on Magellan TV because it truly is television worth watching. So, if you want to start enjoying content that is both entertaining and educational, click the link in the description box and start watching now. Magellan TV is offering viewers of this channel a 1-month free trial so you can see how great it is for yourself. There's no strings attached, you aren't locked into anything, and you can cancel at any time. So there really is nothing to lose except hours of amazing documentary content if you don't give Magellan TV a try. Thank you so much to Magellan TV for sponsoring today's video. Let's dive back in. Okay, so for this case, we're going to go over the timeline as we know it. I'm recording this on Tuesday, September 22nd. A lot has happened in the past couple of days. When I first started looking into this case, there wasn't half as much information out there as there is now. So I'm going to go through the timeline as we know it up to this point, and then I'm probably going to have to go through some articles because, like I said, everything's coming out. Every hour there's, a new article, there's new information. So at the end of the video, I'll go through some current articles and hopefully get us updated to the point of today. Gabby Petito was born in Long Island, New York, in the hamlet of Blue Point. She was the oldest of 6 siblings, and she attended Bayport Blue Point High School, where she met her boyfriend, Brian Laundrie. And Brian and Gabby bonded over a shared love of adventure and nature. In 2019, Gabby moved to Northport, Florida, where she would live with Brian and his parents, Christopher and Roberta, on Wabasso Avenue. Together, the couple would go on several road trips, documenting their adventures with pictures and videos that they would post on social media, with captions like, "Soaking in the sun in the moment we are living." But then the pandemic hit. Traveling was not an option for Gabby and Brian at first. So it does seem like they got a little stir crazy, which is understandable. All of us got a little stir crazy during the pandemic. And honestly, I do know that within the first 6 to 7 months of the pandemic, at that point, the 6-month point, I would have happily burned down my entire house and everything in it, gotten in a van and just driven, just to be out of the house, just to see something different. Gabby and Brian, they had met in high school, but it doesn't look like they started dating until after high school. And after a few years of dating, Brian proposed to Gabby in July of 2020, and she said yes. And then they began to plan their future adventures. Gabby and Brian started a YouTube channel called Nomadic Static. And the blurb or the description on this channel says, quote, "After our first cross-country trip in a little Nissan Sentra, we both decided we wanted to downsize our lives and travel full-time," end quote. Gabby's mother, Nicole Schmidt, said that her daughter wanted to throw herself into the van life world and center her social media content around this aesthetic. Nicole said, quote, "She just fell in love with the lifestyle and wanted to take journeys. She was a free spirit. Everybody was jealous. Everyone was like, we want to do that too, but we all think we just have to get a job and go to school. But she was doing what we were all envious of, and I supported her on all of that. Even every once in a while she needed help money-wise and stuff because it was a really expensive trip. I helped her out a little bit here and there. So did her father," end quote. Gabby's mother, Nicole, and her father, Joe, are divorced. I believe they both remarried, and Joe actually moved to Vero Beach, Florida in 2020 to be closer to his daughter, Gabby. And what do Gabby's parents think about her fiancé, Brian, and Gabby's relationship with him? We can't really be sure because it does appear that Gabby's family, at least in the early days and weeks of this investigation, they'd been instructed by law enforcement to not publicly talk about the relationship. But they did give us a little insight early on, and they've been more vocal about it in the past couple of days. Gabby's mother, Nicole, said that Brian's family was always warm and welcoming to Gabby, and Brian's mother had even knitted Gabby gifts for Christmas. Nicole said, quote, "She loved her like a daughter. As far as we know, they were all very caring and treated her like one of the family. His mom was excited about the engagement," end quote. But it did not seem that Gabby and Brian were as excited about their engagement. In one post on his Instagram, Brian Laundrie called Gabby the love of his life, saying, quote, "My biggest fear is that one day I'll wake up and it will all have been a dream, because that is what every second has felt like since the moment we found each other. Till death do us part, or until I wake up. I'm so happy the answer was yes. Love you, honey," end quote. Till death do us part, or until I wake up. But according to Gabby's mother, Nicole, Brian and Gabby had recently called off the engagement, feeling that they were still so young and things were moving a bit fast. They are very young. Gabby was 22. Brian is 23. A lot of people say he looks much older than her. I agree. That's besides the point. He's only 1 year older than Gabby was. Brian described himself as a nature enthusiast and an artist. Brian's Instagram bio suggests that everyone should take a hike each day because bug bites are better than being brainwashed by the media. I'd have to agree with him, but I would, maybe forego bug bites and being brainwashed by the media I think we can live happily without either of those things. Gabby and Brian invested in a 2012 Ford Transit Connect van that they then converted into a camper. Gabby, who had been working as a pharmacy technician to save money, she quit her job, and the couple decided to take a long trip through Kansas, Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming. On June 17th, Gabby and Brian traveled to Long Island to attend Gabby's little brother's high school graduation, and on July 2nd, the two set off for what was supposed to be their biggest adventure yet. This was the first time, I believe, that they were traveling in this van because, as Gabby had said in the YouTube blurb, they'd been traveling in a Nissan Sentra before, but this whole van life thing really kicked off. You see it all over social media now. There was that one channel a couple years back that popped up and everybody said it was like a YouTube plant. I forget her name, but she was so beautiful. She was a black girl. She had this snake with her. I forget the snake's name. I used to remember because I watched her all the time, even though she never posted a lot. But I think that channel really was a big reason why this van life thing started taking off on YouTube. But I could be wrong. It could have been there far before that. You guys will correct me, I'm sure, if I'm wrong. I just wasn't paying attention to it. But that's the thing about social media, right? It's like everything's on there, especially if you're like Gabby and Brian and you're sort of doing this adventure thing. Yes, because you want to, but also because you want to document it on social media and you want to grow your social media following. And you're going to do that by doing something that's popular, that's trendy. I think that the whole social media aspect is also why this case has blown up and it's gotten so much attention and so much exposure. I swear I have not seen a case like this since Chris Watts. I mean, I was watching a video game channel. I like video games, so I watch video game channels on YouTube, and the video game guy was talking about Gabby's case. And I was like, this is so odd. It's so bizarre. It's so surreal because this is what I do every day. And I have done this every day for years. But to see so many other people who have never talked about true crime before coming out and talking about Gabby, it's bizarre. But it's also heartwarming because it's so nice to see an entire community, an online community, which is made up of millions of people coming together for the singular purpose of finding this really cute young girl who we all feel like we've come to know through her social media presence. And through the Instagram accounts of Gabby and Brian, we were able to follow them on their trip. But as we know, an Instagram picture, it's never real life. It's never the whole story. And the pretty words of the captions are usually not a true description of what's actually happening behind closed van doors. On July 4th and 5th of 2021, Gabby and Brian were at the Monument Rocks in Kansas. Gabby posted a picture of herself next to some rock formations on July 4th with the caption, quote, "There's no place like the tiny home we built," end quote. On Brian's Instagram account, he posted a picture of himself sitting on top of their van with the caption, quote, "Downsizing our life to fit into this itty-bitty van was the best decision we've ever made. With the limited space, we wanted to take advantage of every inch while also keeping everything minimalist. Definitely felt inspired by a lot of other van lifers on YouTube, but we came up with a completely original layout. Barely spent anything on the conversion and couldn't be happier with the outcome. Van tour coming soon. Sacrificing space to wake up in nature every day has been no sacrifice at all," end quote. And, I'm not saying what Brian is communicating in this post, I'm not saying it's not true or not valid, but you'll see this. It gets a little cringy with him because he's very self-righteous. He's very like, I know the right way to live. I am a good person. I am virtue signaling. And if you're not doing what I'm doing, you're not living right and you're hurting the world or yourself or your psyche or society in some way. Like, he seems very jaded. He seems very almost bitter about the world. He has this negative worldview, this negative view of society as a whole. And I don't say this just because it's my opinion. I say it because I think it's relevant at the end of the day to this case. On July 8th, the couple were in Colorado Springs, and Gabby posted a picture of herself posing in front of a flower mural in Old Colorado City. On July 10th, Gabby and Brian were visiting the Great Sand Dunes in Colorado, which will always make me think of Chris Watts and Nicole Kessinger. Do you remember that little video of them when Chris Watts was cheating on his wife with Nicole and they were, surfing the sand dunes? Brian posted a picture of himself on the sand dunes with the caption, quote, "First time out to the Great Sand Dunes. I've never set foot in a terrain like this, let alone surfed down hills of sand or tasted sand. I got to taste a lot of sand," end quote. On July 10th, Gabby posted on Instagram that she was able to score a campsite overlooking the dunes for 2 nights, saying, quote, "I'm so grateful we got such an awesome spot to spend the night and surf the dunes. And the night sky here was insane. I've never seen so many stars." End quote. On July 11th, Gabby wrote that this would be their last day in Colorado and they were moving on to Utah, and they would spend quite a bit of time in Utah. On July 16th, Gabby and Brian were in Zion National Park, and Gabby wrote on Instagram that they'd already been there for 2 nights and they were staying at Watchman Campground in the park. She said on Instagram, quote, "The past 2 nights camping in Zion have been so cool, literally. We hiked up here in about 100 degrees, and it was so nice coming back to our campsite, watching the sky fill with dark clouds and view the lightning storm in the nice cool air of the light rain." End quote. She also posted some pictures of the interior of their tent with hashtags like Expedition Happiness and Right to Explore. Brian posted some pictures of Zion with the caption, quote, "Zion is proof that mankind can ruin anything, even in an effort to preserve it. Beautiful park, just with the unfortunate infestation of human beings." End quote. So you see what I mean. Very negative worldview. He literally says that he considers human beings to be an infestation, like they're rats or cockroaches. And that's telling. Next, they traveled to Bryce Canyon in the Dixie National Forest, still in Utah. Brian posted a picture of himself with the caption, quote, "Thank you at Gabby Petito for putting up with me through Utah, a topographic playground." End quote. A lot of people have wondered, what did he mean by that, putting up with me through Utah? Did he mean that they were fighting? Did he mean that he was being a pain in the ass? Did he mean that he was like annoying her, getting on her nerves? I mean, they've been in this van, for several weeks at this point with each other in close quarters. So it's understandable that they might both be getting on each other's nerves. We don't really know what he meant by this. It could be a plethora of things. By July 26th, Gabby and Brian had moved on to the Mystic Hot Springs in Monroe, Utah. And there's this adorable picture of Gabby posted to Instagram. It's probably my favorite picture of her. I'm going to put it up on the screen. But Brian does not post anything from this area. At this point, these two people, like I said, they've been living in close quarters for 3 weeks. Van life sounds fun until you're stuck inside of it day in and day out. And it seemed like it was raining quite a bit while they were in Utah, which would prevent them from going out and exploring as much as they would have liked. It would have forced them to stay inside the van. And this is a Ford Transit Connect, so it's not even the full-sized Ford Transit. They are not big inside. On July 28th, Gabby and Brian created a website called nomadicstatic.com, but I went to the website and it looks like you need a password to enter. I was only able to view the homepage, which I'm putting up on the screen right now. On July 29th, they were in Canyonlands National Park, still in Utah, where they encountered some dust storms that also kept them inside. On July 30th, Gabby posted some pictures on Instagram, which she captioned with a story about how Brian, he hiked barefoot everywhere they went. Like everywhere they went, he didn't even bring shoes. He just walked around barefoot, and people would point to him and they'd say, "Whoa, he's barefoot." And it really would cause an uproar everywhere they went, where people would be shocked that he was hiking barefoot. Gabby wrote that Brian every day inspired her to live a more natural lifestyle, and she was building up her feet so that she too could also hike barefoot. After this, there's a bit of a social media blackout where neither Brian nor Gabby posted on Instagram. And on August 10th, a man traveling the country in his own converted van ran into the couple near Moab, Utah. His name is Jay Foster. He's from Alabama. He was, also traveling in his converted van, even though his is a VW, theirs was a Ford. And he stopped to chat with Gabby and Brian. They talked for roughly 40 minutes. Gabby, Brian, and Jay, they all talked about the different modifications they'd made to their vans. And Foster said, quote, they were holding hands. They were ecstatic about their rebuild. That's what I find so weird about the whole situation. They were both really cool. There didn't seem to be anything wrong whatsoever. End quote. According to Jay Foster, Brian had done most of the mechanical modifications to their van, while Gabby had furnished and decorated and did the modifications for the interior, and she was really proud of the sink that she had installed inside the van.
Hello, and good morning. It is really nice and sunny today. It's only 10 o'clock in the morning, but it rained all afternoon yesterday. Oh my God! The tent is just coming in on me. The wind is so bad. So me and Brian just got up and got ready, made the bed in the tent, set up. I think our plan for today is to just hang out here in the tent. Brian's stretching, doing some morning yoga. That's cool.
That worked out well.
Alright. All the chocolate melted.
I know, it's a river of chocolate. Be cautious.
You can't keep chocolate in Utah. Not in July. Or in a clear plastic container
Yeah.
that is always in the sun.
I was in the tent this morning, I think that's why.
Jay Foster remembered that Brian and Gabby mentioned that their next stop was Yellowstone National Park. And then Jay left to go on a hike, and when he returned to the parking lot, Gabby and Brian were gone. Now, Jay says, they were the nicest people. They were both so cool. They were so nice. Brian had a skateboard, and he offered it to Jay. He was like, I'm not going to need this anymore. Do you want this skateboard? And Jay was like, yeah, I'll take the skateboard. He said they seemed in love. They seemed happy. They didn't seem to be arguing. They didn't seem like there was any tension between them. And everything was cool. However, not long after, on August 12th, law enforcement in Moab, Utah were called to a reported domestic problem near the Moonflower Community Cooperative. This is a food co-op, and a food co-op is basically a grocery store that's owned by the people who shop there with the goal of selling high-quality food at fair prices. Now, I'm not going to talk about the other case of the two women that were murdered in Utah. This happened a few months ago. One of the women happened to work at the Moonflower Co-op. Her wife and herself were found murdered. Initially, in the early stages of Gabby's case, there was some articles claiming that there was some kind of connection, but law enforcement has recently come out in the past couple of days and said there is no connection. But while they were here in Moab, in front of the Moonflower Co-op, apparently Brian and Gabby were seen by a witness who claimed they were arguing. They were arguing over a cell phone. And what happened was it was reported that this witness who called 911 saw Gabby slap Brian, and then they saw Gabby climb into the van through the driver's side window. But that doesn't appear to be completely accurate. The witness did call 911, and law enforcement caught up with Gabby and Brian as their van neared the entrance to Arches National Park. The responding officer said that the van was driving 45 miles per hour in a 15 mile per hour zone. He then witnessed the van swerve. It crossed the center line of the road and then swerved again with the front and rear passenger side wheels hitting a curb.
Driver is showing some obscure driving, possibly intoxicated. Currently doing 45 miles an hour. Zone through here is 25. Oh! Subject just hit the curb. Correction, speed limit is 15. I'm about 3/4 of a mile into the Arches, just before the gate. You want to place your vehicle into park and go ahead and turn it off for me? No, park?
Oh, it isn't parked yet.
Okay, turn off your engine. Go ahead and set your keys on the dash for me, alright? What's your guys' names?
Gabby.
Gabby, Brian? Okay.
The van then came to a stop a short distance from the entrance gate of the park. The police officers approached the van and questioned Brian and Gabby separately. Apparently, Gabby was a stickler about keeping the van clean. She had just cleaned it earlier that day when Brian, who, as we know, likes to hike everywhere with bare feet, he tried to get in the van with his dirty Fred Flintstone feet, and she went into this, manic state, according to Brian. Brian and Gabby both told the police that they were in love, engaged to be married, and they didn't wish to see anyone charged with a crime. Like, nobody was pressing charges. It was just an argument, nothing to see here.
What's going on? How come you're crying?
I'm sorry, we've just been fighting this morning. Some personal issues.
It was a long day. We were camping yesterday, and camping got the flies and stuff. I'm sorry I hit the bump there.
I was distracting him from driving, I'm sorry.
Can I get you to step out of the vehicle for me, man?
Yeah.
Just hang tight right there. Do you mind if I take your keys and just put them on your hood?
You got it, buddy. I'm so
Thank
sorry.
you. Oh, no, you're fine.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just some days I have really bad OCD, and
Okay.
I was just cleaning and straightening up the back of the van before, and I was apologizing to him and saying, I'm sorry that I'm so mean, because sometimes I have OCD and sometimes I just get really frustrated. Not like mean towards him. I just like, I guess my vibe is like I hear him like in a bad mood. And I was just saying, I'm sorry if I'm in a bad mood. I've just been really stressed. I had so much work I was doing on my computer this morning.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to work at an organic juice bar, but I just quit my job.
Okay.
I was a nutritionist. That's
Oh,
what
okay.
that's my
That's
job.
cool.
And I just quit my job to travel across the country. And I'm trying to start a blog. I
Okay.
have a blog and stuff. So I've been building my website. So I've just been really stressed, and he doesn't really believe that I could do any of it. So that's kind of been like I don't know. He's like down there. I don't know. We've just been fighting all morning, and he wouldn't let me in the car before. And then
Why wouldn't he let you in the car? Because
He told
of
me
your
I
OCD?
told me I needed to calm down. Yeah. But I'm perfectly calm. I'm calm all the time, and he really stresses me out, and this is a rough morning.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't I sit you down in the back seat of my car? You're not in any trouble, okay? I'm not going to be putting handcuffs on you. You obviously don't have any weapons. I'm going to get you into the air conditioning, let you take a breath, relax a little bit, and then I'll come back and talk to you in a few minutes, okay?
Okay.
Alrighty.
But Gabby was crying and distraught, and the police officer who filled out the report, he said that there was not a moment where Gabby was not crying or wiping her eyes or wiping her nose. She was crying the entire time. And she admitted that she had hit Brian accidentally after he'd locked her out of the van, and she thought he was going to drive off and leave her there, so she panicked. Brian explained to the police that he had locked her out because she, quote, gets worked up sometimes, and I really try to distance myself from her, so I lock the car and I wait for her, end quote.
She just gets worked up sometimes, and I try and really distance myself from her, so like I locked the car and I walked away from her. What happened this morning is that she's trying to start up like her own little website blog and everything, so I give her time. And we really had a nice morning, if anything, but she just got worked up because we were trying to get going and get our day going because we want to go like arches before the stuff every time.
Okay. You want to tell me about those scratches on your face?
She had a cell phone in her hand, that's why I was pushing her away, because she wanted I locked the keys so I could walk away. I said, let's just take a breather and let's not go anywhere, let's just calm down for a minute because she was getting a little worked up. And then she had her phone and was trying to get the keys to me, so I got in the way. I was just trying to, I know I shouldn't push, but I was just trying to push her away to go, let's just take a minute, step back and breathe. And she got me with her phone.
Can I see your hand? Oh, you got a mark right here.
Oh, that's from a wire.
That's from a wire?
Yeah.
You want to tell me about hitting that curb?
Hitting the curb was her grabbing the wheel.
She grabbed the wheel?
Yeah. She said, I can't believe we're getting pulled over, and then she grabbed the wheel.
What about the speed? Did she take over the...
No, I
take over the pedal on you?
If I was going fast, I'm sorry. No, it's probably just the moment of like, I'm still shaking now. The adrenaline, seeing the lights flashing up, and then her gripping the wheel. So if I sped up, I'm sorry about that. Or if I was speeding beforehand, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, it took quite a bit to catch up to you. So,
yeah. I'm sorry about that. We're just going into the park again to get water because we have a 6-gallon water container to fill up. So we're just grabbing water before the hike. Okay. And I was trying to keep everything calm and quiet because there's plans still to go for a hike, but it's good.
Brian told the police officers that Gabby had been stressed out about her blog, but Gabby told the police officers that she struggled with OCD and anxiety issues, saying, quote, I just quit my job to travel across the country, and I'm trying to start a blog, a travel blog, so I've been building my website. I've been really stressed, and he doesn't believe that I can do any of it, end quote. So Gabby's father, Joe, did go on Dr. Phil later, and he said, no, Gabby's not OCD. You know, she has never been diagnosed with OCD. She does like things a certain way. She, you know, likes everything in its place, but she's just using like buzzwords. She's using slang. Gabby also said that she and Brian had been fighting all morning, and she felt that the long road trip had been taking a toll on them, and that the time spent together had created an emotional strain and then increased the number of arguments they were having. When the police asked Brian about some scratches on his face, he claimed that Gabby had her phone in her hand and she was trying to like get the van keys from him. And Brian told her, you know, take a step back, take a breath, take a walk, and we'll come back to each other. And that was when she got him with her phone. And this is what caused the scratches on her face. Now, that was the standard story we all heard from the media. We watched the body cam footage. It was over an hour long. However, more recently, the original 911 call was released, and it tells a little bit of a different story. In the police report, it says, quote, the driver of the van, a male, had some sort of argument with the female, Gabby. The male tried to create distance by telling Gabby to go take a walk to calm down. She didn't want to be separated from the male and began slapping him. He grabbed her face and pushed her back as she pressed upon him and the van. He tried to lock her out and succeeded, except for his driver's door. She opened that and forced her way over him and into the vehicle before it drove off. End quote. The responding officer had initially written in the report that he believed the male Brian had been observed hitting the female, Gabby, but he later wrote that no one had reported that Brian had struck Gabby. However, in the transcript from the 911 call, the person who called 911 to report this says, quote, we drove by and the gentleman was slapping the girl. Then we stopped. They ran up and down the sidewalk. He proceeded to hit her, hopped in the car, and they drove off. End quote. At the end of the day, the police basically said, we don't think this is a domestic violence issue as much as it is like a mental health issue. And, you know, we decided not to press charges. And there's a lot of people out there who are saying that the police failed Gabby, that they were her last chance. Personally, my belief is I'm sort of in the middle. I agree with that, but I also can see the other side. So what we have here is the police have been under fire for the better part of a year. Maybe a little bit longer. I've lost track of time at this point. They've been accused of not being human enough. They've been accused of using excessive force. They've been accused of sort of jumping the gun and not actually looking at the human element. So what we have here is probably a lot of police officers, a lot of law enforcement officials who are worried about being that guy who's caught on a cell phone camera making an arrest or putting a young 23-year-old girl in handcuffs. And so they want to be super nice. And you can hear in this video, in this body cam video, the police officers are super nice to Gabby and Brian. And they're like, we understand, you know, when this happens with me and my wife, we do this.
But yeah, we're going over to Portland, and I don't know if you're probably here more familiar with it. Wolfing, have you ever heard of that? WWOOFING.
Yeah.
You got it.
I'm from California originally.
Oh, yeah?
So, and part of my job, I dealt with employees that were from all across the United States, in Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, everything you can think of on your level Western. I know most of them.
So what you have here is a sort of symptom of society and the communities out there demanding that the police focus more on mental health and not just jump the gun and immediately like assume that a crime's been committed. And so what you have here is a police force who's like, well, let's focus on mental health. Let's be more human. Let's just not assume that something nefarious is happening, and let's try to be just nicer. You wanted us to focus on mental health? This is us focusing on mental health. When you try to tell a police officer to ignore their better judgment, and their better judgment is the fact that they're trained to recognize red flags when they see them. Even if they're wrong, at least they're noticing these red flags and they're acting upon them. But when you train them to focus on mental health first and, you know, not look at everything through this very critical lens, this is what you get. And that's just my opinion. You may disagree with me, but that is my opinion. So it was decided at the end of the day that Gabby and Brian should separate for the night. Gabby would stay in the van, and the police department arranged for Brian to stay at a local hotel. It was the Bowen Motel in Moab. However, management at the hotel has confirmed that they did have a reservation booked on August 12th, and this reservation was booked through a nonprofit group, but they could not say whether the reservation had been made specifically for Brian Laundrie or even if the room had been occupied that night. So we don't really know if Gabby and Brian separated for that evening. The next day, Brian posted on Instagram, and he does not mention the Moab incident. The picture is of him holding half of a cantaloupe or like a honeydew melon or something, and the caption says, quote, "Not a lot of biodegradable packaging for on-the-go food these days. That's why I stick with my melon rinds, apple cores, peach pits, and banana peels. Also, most melons contain around 90% water. Talk about hydration. Let's keep plastic water bottles off the trail, or better yet, off the planet." End quote. This same day, Brian also posted a long rant, and the rant said, quote, "Humans are primates, great apes in fact, but I don't know all how great we are as a species. Chimpanzees share 98.8% of their DNA with humans, our closest living relative. But as I see it, every living creature is in some way our relative, even trees. Only 800 million years ago, only 800 million years ago was like yesterday. Anyways, I'll continue. Only 800 million years ago, animal cells started appearing on Earth, comprised of mainly the same parts and following the same function as plant cells, requiring oxygen, solar energy, minerals, nutrients, and water. This tree was surviving in only inches of soil in an area of extreme heat and drought. I think our culture, our society, has put itself above all living creatures, creating needs purely to support destructive economic practices. This tree doesn't require an Apple Watch. It doesn't stream its favorite shows or have a microwave oven, pay health insurance, or drink grande iced caramel macchiatos. It's just a tree, but you rarely see geese riding jet skis or wearing designer clothing either. I think if we all want breathable air and drinkable water, we need to learn how to live with less." End quote. After this, Brian does not post on his Instagram page again, and on August 17th, Brian flew back to Florida, leaving Gabby and the van in Utah, and he does this allegedly to help his father empty out a storage unit that he and Gabby had been storing some of their other things in. Brian's father had offered to keep the stuff at his house so that the couple wouldn't have to pay for the storage unit. Brian did not return to Utah until August 23rd. Now, it's possible that the couple decided after their public fight, which was probably embarrassing, maybe they needed some space from each other. But why not just say that if that's the case? Why not say, yeah, I'm back here because Gabby and I had an argument, we need to take a couple of days, etc. Flying from Utah to Florida to help your dad empty out a storage unit, it seems ridiculous, right? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. Like, there's nobody else in Florida that can help your dad. Your dad can't wait until you guys get back. So many other options than leaving Gabby alone in Utah while Brian flies back to Florida to help his dad carry some boxes. And I mean, Gabby and Brian were minimalists, right? So how much stuff could they possibly have had? Some people online have speculated that Brian and Gabby broke up after the fight. So he left, but if that's true, why would he return on the 23rd? Did they make up over the phone? Did she ask him to come back? Or did he decide to go back all on his own to complete some unfinished business? On August 19th, while Brian was gone, Gabby posted on Instagram. Now, there's two pictures. One is an aerial shot of the van, and one is a shot of Gabby's legs. She appears to be sitting in the van, so she's taking a picture of her legs from inside the van, but you can see outside the van, and there's like mountains and brush and kind of deserty terrain in the distance. This is a strange post. And it's strange for multiple reasons. It doesn't sound like something Gabby would usually say in her captions. The caption to these pictures says, quote, "Almost immediately after telling Brian how happy it made me to see that people were truly respectful of the park, I watched some guy leave his processed, prepackaged, plastic conglomerate of lunch garbage on the picnic table." End quote. And then there's a sad face emoji. So it doesn't make sense, right? If she's posting this on August 19th, Brian's not in Utah on August 19th. Why is she making it seem like this just happened? Like, she's taking this picture and posting it almost immediately after she told Brian something, and then she saw something that, counteracted what she said. This post also has some hashtags that Gabby had never used before, like hashtag live plastic free and hashtag live sustainable. Additionally, most of Gabby's Instagram posts up until this point, they've had location tags on them. So it says where you are. You hit the location and then you're able to tell people where you are, where this picture was taken. But this post did not have that. And some people in the comments have pointed out that the same exact photo of Gabby's legs had been posted on her story, her Instagram story, on August 2nd. And it's not lost on many people that the post sounds more like something Brian Laundrie would write. On this same day, Gabby posted her first and only video on the couple's YouTube channel. It's an 8-minute video titled Beginning Our Van Life Journey. I've seen it reported in multiple news outlets that this footage in the video is from their current trip that they were on, but I've also seen a lot of people and a lot of outlets saying that this was a mashup of footage from their previous trips. However, you do see aerial shots of the van, so if this was the first trip they'd taken with the van, where did those come from? Unless they just sort of meshed in, footage of the van. On August 21st, Gabby called her father, Joe Petito, on FaceTime. She said she was in Salt Lake City, but they'd lost power for some reason. I think there was fires or something. The power went out. She couldn't get on Wi-Fi. Gabby asked her father if he would order her food through Uber Eats, and the food was delivered to the Fairfield Inn in Salt Lake City, where Gabby was evidently staying while Brian was in Florida. Gabby's father, Joe, said she seemed fine and normal. Nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary, but it would be the last time that he ever spoke to her. On August 24th, Gabby and Brian were seen checking out of the Fairfield Inn in Salt Lake City. A cashier at the Perkins that was attached to the hotel. Perkins is a restaurant, for those of you who don't know, like a pancake place. So the hotel, the Fairfield, it has a Perkins attached to it. And this cashier told the Daily Mail that she distinctly remembered seeing Gabby in the hotel lobby, and she remembered because she had commented to a coworker about how cute Gabby was. The same cashier was shown a picture of Brian Laundrie, and she said she did not remember seeing him. However, a cashier at the Kix 66 convenience store, which was just a few hundred yards away from the Fairfield Inn, she remembered the couple coming in on the evening of August 21st, which is odd because we don't have Brian returning from Florida until the 23rd. But this cashier said, quote, "They came in together on the night of August 21st. I remember them because he was telling her to hurry up." End quote. The cashier claims Gabby didn't respond when Brian told her to hurry up, but she did go outside to use her phone at one point, and when she came back in, Gabby and Brian purchased bottled water, a few packages of instant noodles, and donuts. Now, does it sound right that Gabby and Brian are buying bottled water? When Brian already went on a tirade about how we should get bottled water or plastic bottles off the trail or off the world completely. Is the cashier mistaken? And this was another young couple? Is the cashier mistaken? And this wasn't the night of the 21st, it was the night of the 23rd. Was Brian not as gung-ho about the environment as he claimed to be? Did they buy glass bottles? Or did Gabby purchase bottled water, which made Brian upset with her? These are questions we still don't have answers to. The last time Gabby spoke to her mother in person so that Nicole could hear her voice or see her face, it was on August 25th. Gabby told her mother that they were headed to Grand Teton next, and Gabby also mentioned that she wasn't sure where her relationship with Brian stood or where it was going. On the same day, the couple arrived at Grand Teton National Park in Utah, and Gabby posted a picture of herself in front of a wall mural holding a little knitted pumpkin with the caption, "Happy Halloween." It's believed that this is the Monarch mural outside of Ogden, Utah. It's been reported that this area has been told to check surveillance cameras to prove whether Gabby was actually there on that day at this time, or if this was a repost from another time, because once again, the picture was not tagged with a location, and it just seemed kind of weird to be tagging Happy Halloween in August to pretty much seem like she was off the grid for so long, but now she's back here in civilization. It's very possible that they did just happen to go into town. Maybe they needed some supplies, maybe they needed food, gas, etc. And so they took this picture while they were there. But after this, Gabby will never post on her Instagram account again. When Nicole talked to Gabby on the 25th, it was the last time anyone spoke to Gabby in person, and she'll communicate via text from then on. The owner of Rustic Row, a business in Idaho, claims that Gabby and Brian stopped in to the store on August 25th or 26th. They stayed for about 20 minutes, and they told the shop owner that they were traveling from Florida, that they'd just been to Grand Teton National Park, and they were interested in going to Yellowstone. The shop owner said, quote, "They seemed happy when they left. She hollered from the door that they were engaged, and I said congratulations," end quote. Now, for reference, Grand Teton National Park is roughly 30 miles south of Yellowstone, and the shop that Gabby and Brian were allegedly seen at on the 25th or the 26th was in Victor, which is only about a mile from Yellowstone. Now, Nicole claimed that throughout Gabby's trip, they had stayed in constant contact, and Gabby would either call, FaceTime, or text several times a week, keeping her parents updated on her entire trip, all of her travels. There would be short periods where Gabby would be in a place that didn't have great cell service or no service at all, but as soon as she did have service, she would always check in with her parents so they wouldn't worry. On August 27th, Nicole received a text from Gabby's number, but she has her doubts as to whether Gabby actually sent this text or any of the ones that came after. The text said, "No service in Yosemite," which Nicole found odd because she knew that Gabby had not been planning to visit Yosemite. And Gabby was in Utah at this time, while Yosemite is in California. So Gabby and Brian were planning to go to Yellowstone, not Yosemite. So why would she text her mother and say no service in Yosemite? It just didn't add up with anything. It didn't add up with the areas Gabby and Brian had been planning to visit. It didn't add up. And if you have service to send a message, don't you have service to call? There was also another text message that came after this, and at first Nicole didn't share it with the public, but due to a search warrant, which has been newly unsealed, we now know what that text said. Nicole said that she got a text from Gabby's phone saying, quote, "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemails and missed calls," end quote. And according to the Northport, Florida police warrant, Stan is Gabby's grandfather, but Gabby's mother said that Gabby would never refer to her grandfather as Stan. So this is why Nicole and many other people don't believe that Gabby was sending this message, or a lot of these messages, towards the end of August. Nicole believes that Brian was the one sending these texts, and that he did so possibly with the intention of misleading everyone, from Gabby's friends and family to law enforcement. Maybe he wanted people to think that they were in a completely different area. Maybe he wanted police to be looking in California, in Yosemite, instead of where they actually were. Maybe he just wanted people to think that Gabby was still alive and well so that they didn't get worried and report her missing. But if Brian was the one who sent that text, it's likely that Gabby was already dead by the end of August. Nicole also revealed to police that since leaving New York in July, Gabby had sent her several text messages suggesting that there was more and more tensions between herself and Brian. Nicole is sure that these texts sent towards the end of August were not from her daughter at all. Now, on August 31st, we see some activity on Gabby's Spotify account. A new playlist was created titled Self-Consumption. So it's believed that Brian Laundrie is the one who started this self-consumption playlist, because he and Gabby apparently shared the same Spotify account. The next day, September 1st, several songs were added to another already established playlist titled Mountain Tops, MTN Tops. According to the New York Post, a series of songs about love and heartache appeared on this playlist, and it was a playlist shared by Gabby and Brian, so they could both collaborate, they could both listen to it, they could both add songs, etc. There was a song by Matt Berry titled Woman off an album called Witch Hazel. The lyrics are as follows. "Your woman is your angel, is your left side, is your whole life. Easily the most beautiful thing in the world. She'll soothe you, she'll accuse you, she'll confuse you, she'll lose you, but always be the best friend you have in the world. Time and space, things in their place. I know it's more than a feeling because my love, it has no ceiling for you. She's dangerous, is courageous, contagious, she's ageless, and could be the last thing you see on this earth. 'Cause your woman is your angel, is your left side, keeps you tongue-tied, and easily the most beautiful thing in your world." End quote. So that's kind of crazy because we don't believe that it was Gabby who added this song to the playlist. It must have been Brian, allegedly, in my opinion. And the lyrics of this song, it's creepy when you think about it. Because if we're going to go on that theory that it was Brian who added these songs, he did so after killing Gabby. Another song added, also by Matt Berry, is titled The Badger's Wake. The song is about a badger decaying underground. And the lyrics say, "Below the frosted uproots, below the green sand deep, below the pond green woods, that's where the badger sleeps. Deep as a solitary stone, in gray and crimson and greens, in slumber of blood and bone, the badger lies still as he dreams. I hear one last slow breath underneath the beech tree home. The smell of the badger's death in the ground leaves a mighty hole, and so the evening it dies. On the trees the ash bloods break. If you look there you'll see the last rise in time for the badgers to wake." End quote. I personally don't think Gabby Petito was alive when these songs were added to the playlist that she shared with Brian, nor when these songs were listened to repeatedly. I think Brian was listening to these songs as he drove as fast as he could back to Florida, because on September 1st, Brian returned to his parents' home in Northport. Brian was there, the van was there, but Gabby, she wasn't there. In fact, no one knew it at that point, besides maybe one person, but Gabby's body would later be found in the Spread Creek Dispersed Camping Area in the Bridger-Teton National Forest. It's about 45 minutes away from Yellowstone National Park, where Gabby and Brian supposedly were the last time anyone saw Gabby alive. But Bridger-Teton is a 34-hour drive from Northport, Florida. He got home on September 1st, so we can only assume if Brian is the one who did this to her, which it's looking like he was, by August 29th, August 30th, Gabby was dead. So now Brian is home, right? But he doesn't reach out to Gabby's mother or father. He doesn't call the police claiming he lost his girlfriend or she got lost and he can't find her. He does nothing. He says nothing. And he calls no one. Because I honestly think, in my opinion, allegedly don't come from me, I don't think he wanted anyone to know he was back in Florida. Besides his parents, of course, who were obviously aware of that fact. Gabby was supposed to meet up with a friend of hers on August 29th in Yellowstone. And this friend felt that something was wrong because he or she knew that Gabby may not have had cell phone service everywhere, but they also knew that she would have called as soon as she got reception. This friend also said something interesting about Brian. They said, quote, "I considered Brian a friend, but the truth will come out, and I hope for everyone's sake sooner than later," end quote. On August 30th, another friend of Gabby's got a text from Gabby's phone saying she was in Salt Lake City, and it's suspected that this message may have been sent much earlier, but it didn't go out until Gabby's phone actually had service, which is going to help with the timeline. On September 19th, law enforcement obtained the tracking data from Gabby's cell phone, and the warrant said that as of Friday, September 17th, Gabby's phone had been turned off and not operational for roughly 15 days. The warrant also supported Nicole's claim, Gabby's mother, that Gabby had been texting her during the trip, suggesting that there was escalating tensions between herself and Brian Laundrie. Not knowing that Brian was back in Florida, Gabby's parents assumed that their daughter and her boyfriend were still traveling through all of their wild and open spaces, and they figured that Gabby would reach out once she was back in civilization. Nicole told the Daily Mail, quote, "The first couple of days she went missing, I believed she was in a place with no service. It was day 8 and 9 that I really became concerned and figured she wouldn't be off the grid for that long," end quote. As the days ticked by and no one heard from Gabby, her mother Nicole began to panic, and on September 10th, 10 days after Brian got back to Florida, Nicole texted Brian and his mother, Roberta, saying she was worried about Gabby. She wanted to know if Gabby was okay. Where are you guys? Roberta, have you heard from Brian? Have you heard from Gabby? Brian, are you there? Do you have service? Is my daughter okay? But Nicole got no replies back from Brian or his mother. And that's when she really knew something was wrong. Because clearly, these people are avoiding you. They're not answering you because they don't want to talk to you. So then Nicole called the police and reported her daughter missing. The next day, Gabby's van was taken into custody, but Brian would not speak to law enforcement. Police claimed they knocked on his door because they wanted to ask him some questions, and they did this on the evening of September 10th, the same day that Gabby was reported missing. And according to the Northport police spokesperson, Josh Taylor, quote, "We were essentially handed the information for their attorney. That is the extent of our conversation with them," end quote. So basically the police go up, they knock on the door, they're like, "We need to talk to Brian. He's the last person that was with Gabby. She's now missing. We got to know if he, knows where she is." And his parents were like, "You're not going to talk to him. Here's our lawyer. You can contact him." Taylor also said that Brian was not a person of interest at the time, but they did need to obviously talk to him to rule him out so that they could move forward, but he was not talking. Taylor said, quote, "Most people would think this individual might have some details as far as the last time he saw her, the last whereabouts. It has not been helpful that he has not talked. We're doing everything we can to get answers for her family and to potentially bring her home safe. So anytime somebody is not fully cooperating to provide that, it can be difficult," end quote. But Taylor also said that Brian was under no obligation to talk to the police, and he's correct, even though that's hard for the rest of us to understand, because if Gabby was the love of Brian's life, you would think he'd want to help find her, bring her home safe. He'd want to give the police information about at least where he'd last seen her, even if they had a fight, even if she stormed off, even if he couldn't find her, which I don't believe any of that, because you would have come home and you wouldn't have waited 10 days to even say anything. And he didn't wait 10 days to say anything. He never has said anything. But if he had actually lost her legitimately and he just couldn't find her, don't you think he would have called the police wherever they were? Don't you think he would have called somebody back home, called her parents to see where she was, etc.? But he does have the right to remain silent and not incriminate himself. And until he's arrested officially, he doesn't even have to sit down and talk to law enforcement. While Brian stayed silent, the police used every other available resource to narrow down where they should start searching for Gabby, which, as you can imagine, was like looking for a needle in a haystack because Gabby and Brian had been all over the place. Police spokesperson Josh Taylor said they were looking into reservations the couple had had for campsites at different locations. They were trying to pinpoint when activity stopped on Gabby's electronic devices and where she was when that activity stopped. They were looking for eyewitnesses at gas stations or toll booths or motels. And eventually, this information brought them to Wyoming. Brian Laundrie's lawyer, Stephen Bertolino, issued a statement on September 14th that said, quote, "This is an extremely difficult time for both the Petito family and the Laundrie family. I understand that a search has been organized for Miss Petito in or near Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. On behalf of the Laundrie family, it is our hope that the search for Miss Petito is successful and that Miss Petito is reunited with her family. On the advice of counsel, the Laundrie family is remaining in the background at this juncture, and we will have no further comment." End quote. As far as the van, it was taken into custody, it was sent in for processing and forensic testing, and officials claimed they did find some things, but they have not revealed exactly what, even though we do know a hard drive was located in that van and also processed. The only member of Brian's family to speak to the media, or anyone, is his sister Cassie, who gave an interview on Good Morning America on September 17th. Cassie claimed she had not seen or spoken to her brother since his return to Florida, saying, quote, "I wish I could talk to him. I've cooperated in every way I can. I wish I had information or I would give more." End quote. So basically Cassie saying, I don't know anything. I haven't even talked to him, but I feel bad about this and, I hope Gabby's found. Cassie said that she and her family wanted Gabby to be found safe, and Cassie said that Gabby was like a sister to her and that Cassie's children loved Gabby. She said, quote, "All I want is for her to come home safe and sound and this to be just a big misunderstanding." End quote. Cassie also commented on the body cam footage from the Moab altercation, and she said it looked typical for Gabby and Brian. She said whenever they would fight, they'd take a little break and then come back and be just fine. After the cold and detached response from the Laundrie lawyer and the statement from Cassie, Gabby's father, Joe, was not having it. And he said, quote, "If that's this family's version of love, to just ignore and not care that someone's gone and people are looking for them and entire countries are looking for them, that explains how we got to where we are today. Because, look at their version of what they call love." End quote. Gabby's stepfather, Jim, also had some choice words to get out, saying, quote, "It's absolutely mind-boggling to our entire family and friends that you are on this cross-country trip and you've been together for so long and every picture and video we see is that you seem to be enjoying yourselves and you say she's the love of your life, she's missing, you were on a trip with her, but you have no comment, you have nothing to say, and you're hiding behind an attorney." End quote. Gabby's family also sent a letter to the Laundrie family, to Brian's mother and father, begging for some humanity, for some help locating their daughter.
Christopher and Roberta Laundrie, we are writing this letter to ask you to help find our daughter. We understand you are going through a difficult time and your instinct is strong to protect your son. We ask you to put yourselves in our shoes. We haven't been able to sleep or eat, and our lives are falling apart. We believe you know the location of where Brian left Gabby. We beg you to tell us. As a parent, how could you let us go through this pain and not help us? As a parent, how could you put Gabby's younger brothers and sisters through this? Gabby lived with you for over a year. She's going to be your daughter-in-law. How can you keep her location hidden? You were both at Jim and Nicole's house. You were both so happy that Brian and Gabby got engaged and were planning to spend their lives together. Please, if you or your family have any decency left, please Tell us where Gabby is located. Tell us if we are even looking in the right place. All we want is for Gabby to come home. Please help us make that happen. And that was from Jim Schmidt, Nicole Schmidt, Joe Petito, and Tara Petito. At this time, I'll take some questions.
Police from multiple states, along with the FBI, began their search in the area of Grand Teton National Park, which is over 300,000 acres, but they were able to pinpoint a certain location near Jenny Lake after a witness, Shannon Baker, claims to have spotted Gabby's van in the Jenny Lake parking area around 5 p.m. on August 25th. Shannon Baker said, quote, "I'm sure of it. It has the black ladder on the back and the 2 black rooftops on top, the 2 bars, and we made the comment that it would be the perfect little camper van to go around in," end quote. Ironically enough, the biggest tip in this case that would lead authorities to Gabby's body came from another van life social media couple, Jen and Kyle Bethune, who have been living in a bus with their 3 children and 4 dogs for 2 years as they traveled the country and made videos for YouTube and Instagram. On Saturday, September 18th, just before midnight, Jen Bethune got a message from a friend with the information that Gabby may have been in the Bridger-Teton area, and this happened to be the exact same place that the Bethune family was at that moment. Jen and Kyle remembered seeing a white van when they had been, traveling around earlier, and since they'd been taking video for social media, they went through their footage and they found it. They found the van. And then they posted this little clip of this video to social media.
This is at the Spread Creek dispersed camping area. We got there and there was a huge gravel lot, and we decided we wanted to try to drive more toward the back because we had heard the views were better back there. So we were heading back on this long dirt gravel road.
And we came across a white van that had Florida plates, a small white van. We were going to stop and say hi because we're from Florida too, but the van was completely dark. There was nobody there, so we decided to continue on our way.
Yeah, the van looked like it was pretty much kind of abandoned. We figured maybe they were out hiking or they were just chilling inside. There was no doors open. It was just kind of, neat to see a Florida plate, on the other side of the country. It's not something you see all the time.
But we wanted to include this in the video just in any way that we can help and get this out there to be able to find Gabby Petito. So if you could share it, if you know anything, please don't hesitate.
Yeah, as we're coming up on it, we're approaching it up here on the left-hand side. This is most definitely Gabby Petito's Ford Transit van. It's kind of wild, like it's insane a little bit, because we drove past, we actually weren't able to find any sites, and we ended up driving back through, saw it again, but here it is on the left.
And I slowed it down so you can possibly see it a little bit better.
But kind of freaky for a late Saturday evening, but we just kind of had a brain fart. Oh my God, there's that van. So if anybody can help, I know the FBI is looking for all the help they can get onto the case.
The footage itself had been taken on August 27th between 6 and 6:30 p.m. Now, some people online have analyzed this video, and they claim that they can see Gabby's shoe or like a flip-flop behind the van. So obviously this brings up questions. Was she dead at this point? Are people really seeing this? I don't see everything that they're seeing, but I see some things, and I see how they might think that they're seeing that. Not that they're not seeing it. I'm not communicating properly. I don't know for sure what it is, but I think it's something. Because not far from where this van was seen by the Bethune family, the remains of a young woman were found. And while there's no official confirmation yet, we know it's Gabby, right? We know that Gabby had tattoos, specifically 2 prominent ones. We know that it hadn't been long enough for her to start decomposing and for these tattoos to not be visible. So we know that these remains most likely belong to Gabby Petito. And as I'm recording this, the autopsy is being conducted today. So when we know something more concrete about how she died or when, I will, give you an update. I'll go live with updates right from my phone, so it doesn't have to be a big song and dance. I'll just post it right from my phone to YouTube.
A dark cloud looms as news spread of Gabby Petito likely being found dead. The big question on everyone's mind, what really happened in these mountains?
And I really am curious to hear about the boyfriend side of the story. That seems like it's going to fill in all the details. all the information to, especially the girl's family. I'm sure they need it.
There are clear indicators that law enforcement has been searching this area. We also found what appears to be a memorial right across the creek over here.
But let's talk about Brian for a moment, because he's vanished, right? The news keeps reporting that he's missing, but we know here in the real world that he's not missing. He ran, allegedly, in my opinion. Don't come for me. The day before Brian Laundrie was named an official person of interest, he was already gone. The FBI arrived at the Laundrie home on Friday, September 17th. They were told by Brian's parents that he'd left the previous Tuesday, the 13th of September. They hadn't seen him since then.
Son beat down as the attention of the nation zeroed in on Brian Laundrie, who police assumed for days was in the home owned by his parents. All day Friday, media and neighbors staked it out as calls grew for Laundrie to finally speak about Gabby. Instead, around 9, his attorney said police were invited to the home by parents who said they hadn't heard from him since Tuesday.
Police spokesperson Josh Taylor said, quote, "We've been trying all week to talk to his family, to talk to Brian, and now they've called us here on Friday. We've gone to the home and they're saying now they haven't seen their son. So we are working through those details as we speak. It's another twist in this story," end quote. When Brian left, he had been wearing a hiking bag with a waist strap, and he told his parents he was going to the Carlton Reserve for a hike. And the Carlton Reserve is a vast natural area east of Venice, Florida. And when I say vast, I mean it's vast. The preserve covers 25,000 acres in the lowlands of the Mayaque River Basin. So it's huge. It's, a lot of it is very wild, overgrown. It's not like you can just walk through the park and find Brian sitting on a bench reading the paper. Law enforcement began searching there for Brian this past Saturday. They used drones and they used bloodhounds who had Brian's scent from clothes found in his house. They searched by foot, they searched from the air. But by the time they started looking for him, Brian had already gotten a several-day head start.
His family says that this is a place that he frequents. They also believe that this is where he came. And again, this is according to them.
Police searched the 200-acre Myakkahatchee Creek Park nearly 12 hours Saturday, and on Sunday went through the 25,000-acre Carlton Reserve. From Skyfox, you can see Brian, maybe a needle in a haystack.
I mean, these are people that were living off the grid in different areas. I don't know how frequently, if he would come out here and do, day-long hikes or whatever. I mean, you could be out here for months if you wanted.
And if you want to know my opinion, and I hope you do because you're here, I don't think he ever went there. I don't think he ever went there because if he was hiding, which clearly he is, right? You come home, all of a sudden the police want to talk to you, your girlfriend's missing, you know what happened to her, allegedly, and so you want to escape. So you're not going to tell your parents where you're going so that they can tell the police where to find you. I definitely think it was a way to throw people off. I don't think that he's there. In fact, I would be surprised if he's even in the country anymore. On Saturday, the police spokesperson tried to explain to the public that law enforcement was limited in what they could do legally because there was no official crime yet, and Brian had not been named as a suspect. He was just a person that they wanted to talk to regarding the case. Brian's parents also claimed they found his car, a silver Mustang, parked near Carlton Reserve, where he said he was going, and it had a note on it. The note seems like it was from some sort of authority figure, like the police or park security, and it was just basically saying, you got to move this vehicle, it can't stay here.
And this afternoon, the Laundrie family attorney shared more details of Brian's parents' movements with us, saying they discovered a note on Brian's car in the preserve when they initially went to look for him on Wednesday. Then they left the car so he could drive back. When Brian did not come home Thursday morning, the parents say they went to retrieve his car.
But Brian's Mustang was not in Northport for very long because after the remains of who we believe to be Gabby were found on Sunday morning, the car was towed away by the police. So do you remember Brian talking about minimalism and you don't need all these belongings? The trees don't need Apple Watches. They don't drink caramel macchiatos. But you need a Mustang, dude? You need a Mustang? That's what I'm saying. All these people on social media who are over here, telling us that we should take a shower and then boil our shower water and drink it, for the environment. They're not actually practicing that in real life. At least a lot of them aren't. Obviously some people are. But come on, they're not. Brian is driving around in a Mustang. I don't care if it's his, I don't care if it's his mother's, I don't care if it's his family's, and his family reportedly has like 10,000 acres in Florida, so dude's crazy. As of today, Tuesday, September 21st, law enforcement has started searching Carlton Reserve for Brian again because they searched over the weekend, they didn't find anything, they packed it up. But law enforcement also says he could potentially hide out in the Florida Reserve for months because it's so large and remote, and Brian has experience living off the grid. He doesn't want to be found. He may not be found. I don't think he's there. I really don't think he's there, because if he was there, why would he tell anybody he was going there? He probably left his car there. And, you know, obviously there's speculation that his parents are more involved, that they know more than they're saying, that they may have been aiding and abetting him. That's not coming from me. That is coming from Gabby's family. But I mean, it's also coming from me because that's definitely what it seems like. I get you want to protect your son. I get you don't want him to get in trouble. But it's interfering with a murder investigation at this point. So Brian's parents better start cooperating. Brian's parents better start talking and saying what they know, or they're going to find themselves charged right along with him. On Monday, so yesterday for me, it'll probably be a couple of days by the time you guys hear this, but on Monday, you had the FBI and police agents at the Laundrie home. They were seen removing several boxes, getting electronics, things like that. There was even some rumors and speculation that Brian's parents had been removed from the house and they were put in a van and then they went back in the house. So we don't really know what's going on, but let's look up and see what's new, because at this point, what do we know? We know that Gabby Petito, this 22-year-old, full of life, cute, adorable little girl, she's no longer alive. We also know that the last person that she was with, as far as we know, was Brian Laundrie, her boyfriend / fiance. Who knows what was going on with them. And we know that Brian came back. He left her there without a vehicle, came back to Florida, and then he completely went dark. He didn't talk to anybody. He didn't talk to the media. He didn't talk to the police. He didn't talk to Gabby's parents. And now we know that Brian is on the lam. He has run away. He's not missing. He didn't get kidnapped. He didn't get left dead in some forest. He ran. We know that. He's not missing. As far as I can tell today, this is Tuesday. Once again, they are going back to the Carlton Reserve and they are searching, but they have yet to produce any signs of him. Like, they haven't found anything. They haven't found like a tent. They haven't found, he's eating out of melon rinds, so he's not leaving behind food containers. Thank God for that. There was a graphic designer, Jessica Schultz. She contacted the FBI following an encounter in late August with a white van in the area where the body believed to be Gabby Petito's was found Sunday. Schultz says that the van was traveling slowly down a one-lane road near Spread Creek, and she was forced to go off the road to get around it. When she passed, she says she looked at the van and saw a white male driving it by himself, who she now believes was Brian Laundrie. I'm pretty sure he got out of the van to look around or something, Schultz said. The next 2 days, the van remained in the same area, but no one could be seen around it. On Sunday, before the human remains were found in the vicinity, an FBI agent told Schultz that, quote, I've talked to hundreds of people, but you guys are the ones that really tipped us off to the right place, so thank you, end quote. We also have something that just came out an hour ago. The person who called 911 in Moab when Gabby and Brian were fighting, he told Fox News that he believed the couple was fighting over a phone and that Laundrie may have been trying to ditch his fiancée. They were talking aggressively at each other, and definitely something seemed off. At one point, they were sort of fighting over a phone. I think the male took the female's phone. It appeared that he didn't want her in the white van. This same witness said that he heard Gabby say to Brian, "Why do you have to be so mean?" The witness goes on to say it was as if the guy was trying to leave her and maybe take her phone, not sure, but wanted to help out. We also have a sheriff's office in northwestern Florida actively looking into a report about a trail camera capturing an image of a man resembling Brian Laundrie, who's the person of interest in the Gabby Petito case. Facebook user Sam Bass wrote last night, quote, I'm not saying this is the guy, but whoever was on my trail camera this morning in Baker, Florida strongly fits the description of Brian Laundrie. Authorities have been contacted, but people in the Northwest Florida area be on the lookout. So, I mean, basically this new reporting coming out is just people who are now feeling comfortable to speak now that they have kind of more evidence that Brian is guilty of a crime, because before we didn't know. Was Gabby dead? Was she alive? Some people even speculated this was some sort of like social media, like publicity stunt, that Gabby would pretend to be missing and then Brian would come home and kind of act suspicious, and then there would be, this mass of followers that went to their channels. I mean, which is exactly what happened. But now we know she's dead. Now we know he's on the lam. He's running from something. Innocent people typically don't run away. And I think people are feeling more comfortable coming out. You have friends saying that he was controlling, he was jealous, he had an issue with things like that. You have people coming out talking more about Gabby, who she was. There's a memorial that was made for her. It's a cross made out of stones by the place where her body was found. And I'm expecting that once we have the autopsy results, we'll know more. But I think it's going to be a long time before Brian is found. I think he knows how to hide. I think he knows how to stay off the grid. And I do not think he is where he said he was. I think it was all set up. And I do think that his parents probably know more than they're saying. But that is just my opinion. Allegedly, I am entitled to it. So for now, this is pretty much what we know. Everything else is speculation. Everything else, and there's a lot of speculation going on the internet, and a lot of it's great. A lot of it's great because you've got people thinking outside the box, and that's what's going to solve cases like this. You have people thinking outside the box. You have people looking at everything and sort of trying to decipher everything. But as of now, these are the facts and what we know and our timeline to this point. But I will keep you all updated with small videos, with lives as more information comes out. And we can go live and talk about this case if you want, because I'm sure a lot of people have opinions and a lot of people have thoughts about what's happening here. But I think that the majority of us can agree Brian Laundrie probably did something to Gabby, whether it was purposeful, whether it was an accident, whether it was a crime of passion, whether it was premeditated. We don't know. But it seems very likely that he was involved. That's all I'll say. Thank you guys so much for being here. Don't forget to hit like if you liked the video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. If you already have subscribed, make sure you still are, because YouTube unsubscribes people from my channel all the time. Thank you so much for being here. Let me know what you think in the comments section. My thoughts are with Gabby's parents. I didn't really get into the emotional aspect of this because it's hard, number one, and I really wanted to focus on, facts. But her parents are devastated. Not only are they devastated after having waited for so long to even find out what happened to her, but now to be in this place where you finally have some answers about what happened to your daughter, but now the person who you believe is responsible for what happened to her is on the run and nobody can find him. And I mean, they've got tons and tons of agencies looking for him and nobody can find him. So we'll see what happens from there. But my heart goes out to Gabby's family. I think we're all rooting for you. We're all hoping that even though this is the hardest thing you will ever have to do, you come out the other end of it okay. My love goes out to her parents. My love goes out to her siblings. And my love goes out to all of you guys, because this is hard for everybody. Most people who watch true crime, they do because there's some sort of emotional aspect for them. They find themselves relating to the victim. They find themselves relating to the victim's families. And it does become very emotional. And I do think that this is one of those cases where it is going to be emotional for all of us. So my love goes out to all of you guys. Take care of yourself. Take care of your mental health. Stay kind, stay beautiful, and please stay safe. And I will see you very soon.
Straight down, and that river runs deep, the mountains get steep, and the voices getting too loud. Oh, these feelings I've buried, it's looking like a cemetery. They're coming back from the grave, calling out my name, better say a Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's getting you slowly. So you got to let it go. I got blood on the strings.